And we are here at Hollywood Smoke for another edition of 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Michael Montero of Montero Unboxing and Doug Fischer from Ring TV. Gentlemen, on the night of August 25th at the Staples Center, one of the better fights of the year took place. Leo Santa Cruz outfights Abner Mares over 12 rounds. He wins the Battle of LA. Doug, we were at another fight, which was an adventure in itself. More on that later. And that truly was unforgettable in many ways. Where do you rank Mares Santa Cruz in the fight of the year discussion?
I don't know, 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
It was a brisk pace. It was a competitive fight, at least for the first half of it, and until Leo Santa Cruz took over with his volume, his consistency. I thought he won I thought he won clearly. I wasn't against those scorecards, those two scorecards of 117. 111. So generally speaking, when you're talking about a fight of the year, you're talking about a fight that's like nip and tuck from start to finish, or has some dramatic turnarounds. There were no dramatic turnarounds in this fight, and it was pretty one-sided going down the stretch. And a problem that I had with it is that a lot of grappling, a lot of holding on the inside, initiated by Santa Cruz in the early rounds when Mares came out hard. But then later initiated by Mares, and it's a little too ugly, a little bit too sloppy. Yeah. A lot of missed punches in there, like, they're throwing, but they're not landing.
Yeah, John Wooden once said something about that. Never mistake activity for achievement. Now, Michael, you were there ringside. You're actually a braver soul than me. You go to PBC fights. Now, this event, yes, but this was the rare PBC event that actually had what you'd call an atmosphere.
Absolutely. I think there were 13,000 in attendance, and it felt like real fans. I've been to a few of these PBC cards where it's just preppy corporate actor wannabes.
Oh, one iota.
Yeah, it's one iota guys.
Yes.
I really didn't see that at this fight. But it was disappointing in the sense that 13,000 is a good crowd in boxing, but it could have done more. I think if it was promoted properly, you talked about the Mosley-Mayorga rematch. I saw billboards all over town for that fight. I didn't see one for Santa Cruz Mares. So it was a bit of a letdown in that sense. But talk about fight of the year. I thought through the first half, it was a fight of the year candidate. And then the second half of the fight, like you said, Santa Cruz took over. But it's the PBC fight of the year.
Yeah, they're going to talk about it like it's Morales Barrera on HGH. I'm sorry, I'm sick of the hyperbole. I mean, anytime they get a fight that's not just like totally bad or one-sided, the hyperbole you see on Twitter, like I told you about one fight, I think it was the Brian Vasquez-Fortuna fight. Now, I'm in Memphis doing a really, fight that no one cares about, Latif Coyote, but I'm reading on Twitter, like, what a great fight. I get home on DVR to watch that. In the 8th round, I said to myself, all right, when's this great fight start? Now, Santa Cruz Mares, to me, was interesting in one facet. Never thought I would see a day when Leo Santa Cruz, the consummate activity grinder, would actually lay out on the outside and just simply outbox Abner Mares. I think that took him by surprise.
Yeah, well, Santa Cruz was huge for a bantamweight. He's very tall, he's rangy, he does have that reach, and something that's always set Leo apart from his older brothers, who are also professional prize fighters, in particular Jose Armando, who was a lightweight contender, and I think he held a title, or at least an interim title at one point, is that he's technically sharper. He uses the not just a durable guy. And that was also a factor, Steve, is I didn't know how tough Santa Cruz was until he got in there with Mares, who can make things rough and did land some clean headshots, at least over the first half of the fight. He could not hurt Santa Cruz. And I think a factor is that Santa Cruz is probably finally fighting at his natural weight class. I think he was able to make 118 pounds because of his youth and because of his dedication to the sport, but even making 122 pounds was a struggle for him. I think he's going to be a lot stronger fighting, weighing in at 125 and 126 pounds. And I do consider him a player in the featherweight division.
Michael, from ringside, did you get the sense that, number one, Abner started too quick? He sprinted out of there, couldn't keep that pace. And number two, do you think he ran out of ideas in the second half of that fight?
During fight week at all the events, Abner kind of had an edge to him.
Like he seemed to be
pissed. Yeah,
the bully.
Because Leo is getting more attention from the fans and from the media alike. And I think that Abner just seemed to be angry about that. He came in and wanted to prove that he was the boss in there. And like you said, Leo took that early storm. He was able to weather that, and he responded. And I think he proved a lot to a lot of folks. He really is a player at featherweight. And he responded, and he boxed. He used that length, and that's why I favored him in the fight.
Yeah.
Because he's just a bigger guy. Mares needs to go back down.
You know what's interesting? Mares came in very muscular. I mean, he won the weigh-in. I mean, he looked very good. That was a very impressive physique that he had. Here's the issue. This ain't bodybuilding. And once we were watching that on a laptop of Michael Baca at ringside, the first 3 rounds, you're thinking to yourself, can Mares keep up the pace? And then by the 6th round, we had your answer. Looking at the victor, Leo Santa Cruz at 126, where would you place him right now alongside Gary Russell, Lomachenko, Cuellar, and maybe Scott Quigg moves up one day? Where does he rate among that group, Mike?
He's top 10. I don't know if he's top 5 yet. I think we need to see him against some of those other guys, especially if some move up from 22. I think 22 to 26 is the most stacked area in boxing.
It's right.
I think it's better than welterweight right now because, especially if guys like Rigo move up, there's just so many players right there. Top 10.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got Lomachenko at featherweight. You have Nicholas Walters, if he can still make 126 pounds. If he can't make 126 pounds, obviously he's a monster at featherweight. You have Russell Jr., you have Cuellar. So Santa Cruz is behind those guys.
Yeah.
And even if like one of these standout 122-pound guys steps up, if Rigondeaux stepped up from junior featherweight to featherweight, automatically people would rate him above Santa Cruz. But here's the thing. I want to see them prove it against Santa Cruz. And I know that there's some political things that would prevent Santa Cruz from getting in there with Lomachenko, and lucky for Leo. But I want to see Santa Cruz fight Carl Frampton, who's with the PBC. I want to see Santa Cruz in there with Gary Russell Jr.
Okay, so there you have it. Leo Santa Cruz is the king of LA. On behalf of Michael Montero and Doug Fischer, this is Steve Kim saying till the next round, goodbye, everybody.